is fun on the Baby Lock Zest. First, we're going to take a look at some of the stitches that we can use. We can go ahead and use the zigzag stitch in number C. Then we can use the rick-rack stitch under the stretch settings. Another great stitch would be the honeycomb stitch underneath the stretch settings. And then we're going to go over to number F and take a look at that fun little kind of a hemming stitch. So let's start with F by adjusting our stitch selector to F. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take our stitch length down to, we're going to start with 1.5. Now I've got the standard presser foot in position, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our needle is coming down close to that fabric edge and that the legs of that stitch will jump into our body. Now these are stitches that I would call considered decorative or whimsical stitches for applique. Most of your standard stitches that you see that a lot of sewists use when they're doing applique, something like a blanket stitch, which is more traditional. And as I said, I think that these are more whimsical. So playing with shapes and different threads and different stitches, I think it's always really fun when you are playing with applique stitches. So now that I've stitched a little bit with stitch F, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and change to stitch number C. And when we're going to do that, changing stitches, the always thing you have to remember, or one of the things you always have to remember, is to make sure that that needle is out of that fabric so that that needle has the ability to move. As you can see, that needle moved around. One of the other feet that I really like to use when I am playing with applique stitches or I'm working on an applique project is something called the open toe foot. And what this foot allows me to do is it allows me to see my area that I'm stitching around a little bit easier. So you can see immediately by taking off the standard presser foot and using the open toe foot, it's real easy to see that edge, so I know that I'm catching it all the time. Now this is an optional accessory foot, but I really think it's one of those that if applique is something that you really want to play with, that you're going to really want to make sure that you have in that arsenal of accessories that you're going to be building as you become more comfortable with your machine and start playing with more techniques. So as you can see, I'm just kind of going around here with that zigzag stitch. And again, this is more of a whimsical type look. Now, so let's take a look at stitch number C, but let's take it to that stretch setting and let's see what happens. So when I am playing with decorative stitches, I always tell students to create what I call as a stitch library. Play with stitches and get them to where you like the setting best and write that down. So that way when you go to a project such as this circle that I've placed on this fabric, I'm not spending all my time playing with what look I want. I've already created that look in my personal stitch diary. And let's take a look at stitch number D in that stretch setting. So we're still going to stay in stretch and we're moving over to D. And let's take a look at what this stitch looks like. This one gives me a little bit more coverage, but you can see by using that open toe foot, it's so much easier to make sure that I'm really covering that raw edge of my fabric. So now that I have my stitch library built with the Baby Lock Zest, I'm just going to take a look at what all my stitches look like. Again, I always make sure that my needle's out of my fabric before I raise my presser foot. We're going to clip our threads, and let's just take a look at what our stitches look like. So our first stitch here, this was stitch number F in our standard setting. This is just stitch C, which is a standard overcast or zigzag stitch, which is really, I think, kind of fun. My favorite for applique and a lot of other techniques is the rick-rack stitch, and that is stitch number C in the stretch setting. And then the last one, which is a honeycomb stitch, or often referred to as a couching stitch, is stitch D, again in the stretch setting. So you can just see the different looks that you get on the Baby Lock Zest for applique stitches.